But I don't. Why would she ask? Why would she put this up? I'm really curious because
That's what I want to know.
personally,
I'm getting a shower.
I don't. I mean, I would say no. I mean, I would say there are groups of women that have similar backgrounds and
What are you talking about?
this question
Oh, the language?
Valley Girl.
that might have. That might have some sort of shared language, but I think it's very dangerous to say that women.
Right.
I believe there's like so many degrees of feminism, and like I consider myself a feminist in a lot of ways because I agree with so many of the arguments that feminists make, but I also think there's an extreme feminism that's like tries to separate men and women and you know to make them equal, like to separate them first and then bring them together. And I think that this has something to do with it. Like questions like this, like do women have a special language?
I don't
Like what
understand-
it like.
I don't
What's wrong with
understand the
asking a question?
But it's fine to ask a question, but I don't understand this.
I think the question
Well-
stems from men having their own.
Dude.
The discussion that men have their own
Man.
ways of communicating, which when they say something, it means something, and women are trying to decipher men speak, and I think it's just turning the question around.
Women don't understand my advances, girl.
Oh, is it good to identify them and
Yes,
signify
yes.
them as different?
Well, it's okay because
I'm just wondering. I mean, I don't
But
have
every
answers to this.
subsection
What-
has its own special language.
what year do you think was the first female firefighter in New York City?
Oh man, I have no idea.
Well, just guess. Everybody guess. What
9/11.
year? What year?
1983.
Nah, 70s.
1900s.
See, that's what really matters to me.
1984.
Class.
Was the first, and women weren't allowed to be firefighters.
Yeah.
So, okay, if you would have said, you know what, I love firefighting, I love the fire truck.
Same thing with the military though, but like think about like all the.
Well, 84 though, I mean, that's,
That's the year I was born. I mean, that was
yeah, exactly.
No, yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
when you were a
ridiculous.
baby.
If women wanted to be firefighters, then like they definitely should. It goes back to this whole cultural thing, like the whole men need to provide and women aren't supposed to have those professional kind of occupations that are dangerous.
But I've heard this from firefighters. I know a lot in San Francisco, and they say, and they'll, whether it's sexist or racist, they'll say like, oh yeah, a woman can't. I want my buddy to be strong. I want my buddy to be able to heft this axe or to spool this hose. I don't have to worry about somebody feeble. And they'll make that a sexist thing. They'll make it a racial thing, and they will say it to me. And, expect me to understand and agree. And I don't, and our fire chief in San Francisco, Heather Fong, is an Asian woman. And you talk to a firefighter about it, and I know some firefighters because I went to school in Irish, well, never mind, I'm not going into it. But, I mean, you'd be surprised the stuff you hear, about her. Like, I mean, she is an Asian woman, who is not very feminine. And so that she's a big object of fun. And it's a culture where macho-ness, masculinity, strength, virility, all these things are prized, and
Fighting.
it's seen as intrusion. It's like we're defending, your lives overseas, or we are, putting out your fires. So we need to have physically optimal people in these roles, and that's the justification for exclusion.
But however, since you've worked with fire people, how many fat fucking firemen
And they're all
are
fat.
there that
And
couldn't
they-
lift
and
the
they
fucking
eat
thing?
donuts and
'Cause
they
all
drink
do is
shitloads of
sit all
coffee.
day.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have a
And
story.
they drink in the firehouses, and then a fire call comes, and
There's feminist theologians, and they had these arguments that like there is female difference. There is a difference in gender like thought process. Like women value different things, and we need to recognize this. And it needs to be not only spoken, but it needs to be a part of our attempt to like make things equal. And a lot of the girls and some of the really smart girls in my class.
nowadays,
Women.
if you're under 25,
I consider myself
Boys
a
and
boy
girls, yeah.
still, so I mean that I'm sorry.
I would say a twink. That's the term. Shave though.
A lot of them disagreed with these philosophers, these feminist philosophers and theologians. Like they really disagreed with how they were approaching it, how they were like making the distinction.
What did they disagree with?
They disagreed with the idea that women are caregivers to start with. I think they more grasped the idea that historically and women have been oppressed, and there's this like social thing that overrides the innate inherent idea that women have different emotions, like different ideas of what's important. And I think, and that's like a new thing, like a modern, like a really postmodern thing that women like don't want to associate themselves as different than men.
No, that's classic.
No,
It's
that's
nature versus nurture debate.
Is it like a return to something classic because it has like a new twist, I think.
Well, the New York Times always wants to, and I read the New York Times all the time. I love the New York Times, but they always want to classify us that women are going back to being.
Feminism's dead.
Yeah, feminism's dead. You know, I mean, most women, if you ask any woman, even the right-wing Republican Gathering of the
Except for Ann
Eagles
Coulter.
fuckers, no, her too.
She doesn't want women to vote.
Well, of course, but what's she fucking doing? She's on Fox News. Like, they all say women should be in the kitchen and raising children, but they're all on Fox News
Yeah.
getting, you know, whatever,
And she
you
might
know,
not count.
10 G's per appearance.
It's not that the women in this class were saying that. It was more like that they feel like there's like a plane where there's a neutral plane where
Where everybody should be classified as caregivers.
Well,
As
does
caregivers,
everyone
thank you,
think
yeah.
that women and men are different in the way they think?
But they are.
Every individual
I don't
is.
know.
That's why
I mean, do you
generalization
think that's
thing.
socialization, or do you think they
That's what
truly
that's
are
the question I
different?
was
Because then
going
there's
for.
always
You
the
got it,
ones,
you pinned it.
the genetic males that had their, you know, little bit cut off in the 60s
One in
when
a
they were
hundred.
raised as girls, and, you know,
Jamie
they
Lee Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the nature-nurture
Huh.
debate and stuff like that, and there's always like that brain debate of like hormones and women think a certain way and guys think a certain way. But I was a psychology major, so what people don't generally take into consideration is that our environment influences our brains and our chemistry and stuff like that. So like if you are told that you're not good in math and so you don't focus on math and you're constantly reading and literature and stuff like that, obviously that side of your brain is what's going to develop. So you're going to see physical signs of that developing and think, oh, you see, it's nature. Women are just better at that stuff. And it's like, well, socially we were told to focus on that. So therefore, our brains developed in that way.